And I think a lot of the people stuck at 100,000 are looking at the wrong things. You can do $1 million a month or a year with one employee and Google Sheets. Not concerned about that at all.
The people who are making the most money in this business, like they are creative with the way they make deals happen. They're problem solvers. They are making the most of each lead coming through.
That's what attracted me to this business originally, and that's what attracts a lot of you guys. You can work from wherever, you can vacation whenever, you can travel. Money that will change your life and you don't need to completely work 100-hour weeks for. Welcome back, everyone. Today's topic, we're talking about the difference between a $100,000 business versus $1 million land investing business. I'm your host, Daniel Apke. I'm joined again with my brother, Ron Apke. And I love this topic because there's so many people, I think in between $100,000 and $1 million, Ron, there are a lot of differences. But then we get into infrastructure-wise, and there's not a lot of differences. So I want to talk about how you can easily, it's not going to be easy, but how you can go from $100,000 to $1 million with keeping a lot of the same infrastructure. And I think that's the key difference, and that's one of the best things about land, Ron. But excited for this topic, and welcome back.
Yeah, there's a ton of people under both these categories, I think, under our community, everything like that. So it's interesting because I've talked to so many of them, like seeing the difference is in how they look at the business, how they attack the business, how they hire, just everything around that, the type of deals they're doing. And it's kind of a hobby versus I'm not saying $100,000 a year, Dan, is a hobby, but it is in this business model, it can be a very part-time thing.
I think so too. And either way, $100,000 business, is that even a lifestyle business? Yes, it's going to help a lot of people. I'm not downplaying $100,000 or anything. That's above the average income in America added on top of what you're already making. But you start getting up in the 500 plus, and that's a lifestyle business. And you can do it with very little infrastructure in this business. And that's what attracted me to this business originally. And that's what attracts a lot of you guys to this business, whether you're new or looking to just start out. That's one of the best things about this business is you can have a really, really good lifestyle business without putting in 50, 60 hours a week necessarily.
Yeah. Can you define what you mean by lifestyle business?
Yeah, that's a good question. I just mean money that can change your life, and you don't need to, you're not grinding your ass off for it, essentially. Like money that can really, really make a difference, that you're not, it's hard, and there's still the same obstacles in all entrepreneurship, but hours wise, you're not you can work from wherever, you can vacation whenever, you can travel, you can do whatever that freedom is you're doing. I'm talking about lifestyle, that actually money that will change your life, and you don't need to completely work 100-hour weeks for it.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And yeah, I mean, you just went up to $500,000, and then you all of a sudden go up to $1 million, and it's a whole different ball game in terms of how much that can affect your life. And it matters what you're currently doing, what you're currently making, for sure. So, but if you're making $100,000 in your W-2 job, you get up to $300,000 in land. I got to quit this land job, and then I got to quit this W-2, and then you turn that up to $1 million business. It's 10x what you're making in your W-2.
Making 300, yeah, making 300 is a good lifestyle business, I think, because you're making 100 working for someone else. And if you like that, that's okay. You don't need to quit to make a lifestyle business, or you don't need to quit. A lot of people keep their jobs for the benefits, for security, for safety reasons, whatever, just the comfort. But $300,000 after leaving a $100,000 job. So now I'm making $300,000. I'm only working 20 to 30 hours a week on land at most. 30 is a lot for that money. And you're not reporting to anyone, and you don't need to go in the office anymore. That's the lifestyle stuff I'm talking about.
Yeah,
but
I love
in
that.
This business, or in this episode, we're going to talk about taking a business from $100,000, or the differences between a $100,000 land investing business versus $1 million.
Yeah, I really like the differences, Dan. And let's just start. I think there's differences in a lot of different things. Let's just start kind of on the front end, Dan, in terms of the differences in the people. Let's just start with mindset, as far as comparing the two in terms of mindset of someone who's running a $100,000 business versus $1 million business. For me, and let's just say they're a year in or something. So someone who's a year into this business making $100,000 versus $1 million. A lot of times it's the $100,000 people have this glass ceiling that they struggle to break through. And I think it's a mental thing, whether they're not going after bigger deals, whether they're doing too small deals. Maybe they're just scared to increase their marketing because that's going to increase their overhead. Maybe they don't want to outsource. But from a mindset perspective, Dan, what do you see as the difference in the two?
I think the people who come in and they're creating $1 million businesses, it's 100% a mindset thing, but the mindset leads to your action. So it's always an action, but what's really holding someone back is the mindset behind it is why they're not taking the action to get them. It's barriers, it's mental barriers that's holding them back, I think. The people who come in and crush it and are doing $1 million businesses, you got to start at 100,000 though. It's not like you're just gonna go to $1 million right off the gate. Like you got to get a couple of deals in the pipeline, understand it, get the proof of concept. It's a ladder. We didn't buy a $1 million property until we bought. We started with $10,000 properties, $50,000, 100, and we kept working your way up. And then that's just how mental barriers work. Like you're not gonna go and base jump off of the Empire State Building before you just go and skydive.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I think there's a lot of mental barriers like that. But there are people who get stuck at that 100, 150,000. A lot of people get stuck at that 100, 150,000. And it's like an infinite game, just mental barriers holding them back. This is an infinite game. There are no limits. There are no ceilings. There's no rules on what you can or cannot do. How you run your business. You can think, there's just the good people are thinking outside the box and really aggressive.
Yeah. And the good people have like
And I
when
don't
they're
want to say good. I think that's a bad term.
No, I agree.
$1 million people.
The $1 million people come in with $1 million goals. I think it's really hard for people who want to say they want to make $10,000 per month to go and build $100,000 a month business, because that's what I hear. And like we really push people to have big goals because we know how attainable big goals are. So just like, if you want to get to $15,000 a month and you get there, like what's going to get you to get there to $100,000 per month? Like you get content almost if your goals are too small. So people coming in who get to $1 million in their first 12 months typically have really big goals where their goal is $80,000, $90,000, $150,000 per month. And that's why they hit it, is because they have really, really solid big goals. And then they take the action, obviously following that down.
Yeah, and if your goal like year one, maybe you want to make 100,000, but then that's good. I mean, if you can do that in year one, hopefully you blow that out of the water. It's very, very obtainable. But then like, what's year 2 and 3? And I think, and then working backwards from there, and not only putting that goal in place, but working backwards into how we're going to get there with actions. And that's what we really, really teach our coaches to focus on. Okay, set a goal with them. See what their goals are. You have them stretch, but also you want to work with it, because some people don't want $1 million business. But if they do want $1 million business, how are we going to get there exactly? Right? So it's almost like you got to put a timeline in place for what you're going to do differently, because different actions are going to lead to that result. And you got to figure out what those key actions are. Work backwards from $1 million by the end of the year. By December, I need $1 million total. Here's what I'm going to do each quarter to get there. Here's what I'm going to do bi-weekly in that quarter, things like that. And that's what really, really will get you there. But it all starts with the mindset of breaking through that barrier and knowing you can do it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's move on to marketing, Dan, because that's kind of the first thing to get deals is marketing. $100,000, like it's really hard to break it down into something that small, Dan, because $100,000 a year could be a thousand leads, 1,500 leads a month that you're reaching out to. It matters what form of marketing, but marketing as a whole for $100,000 businesses, typically it's one mode of marketing where you're doing texting, cold calling, or mail, and it's not really a multifaceted approach for that size business. And then the volume is definitely lower. They might be reaching out to 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 leads per month versus $1 million a year person might be reaching out to 10,000, 15,000 leads per month.
Yeah, or even more than that.
Yeah. $1 million plus. Like you can hit them. There's so many different nuances within this. Like what type of deals are we going after? And we'll definitely get into that, Dan, because $1 million business could be 50 deals a year. It could be 5 deals a year. It could be 1 deal a year. So the size of the business doesn't necessarily fully equate to the number of leads they're reaching out to. But as a whole, Dan, what are your thoughts in terms of just how $1 million a year business approaches marketing versus $100,000 a year?
I think you hit on the spot. Usually the $100,000, they're consistent, right? A lot of those people are still going to be consistent with sending a few thousand, whatever. They're like, obviously you need more. If you're sending out text, you're going to need more leads to get there. If you're sending out mail from your house with colored envelopes and personal notes and stuff, you're going to need less than that, just volume wise. And they both have pros and cons for sure. Texting's the cheapest, but it's going to create a little more work. Mail is the most expensive, especially if you're doing it through mail houses and don't need to do it yourself. But it's also the most hands off. So there's pros and cons. We're not going to get too much into that. But yeah, I agree with what you said. Usually the $100,000 a month people have one channel of marketing. It's usually fairly conservative, a few thousand leads here and there. But a lot of those people doing between $100,000 to $200,000 are still pretty consistent, and they have a lot of the fundamentals down. Unless they're newer and they're really trying to grow and they're in the growth phase, like getting to $100,000, like I said, is their first milestone, and then they're going to exceed past that. But the people stuck in 100,000 are usually pretty consistent. They're usually pretty good. They have a lot of knowledge. I think that's one thing that's very similar to them in $1 million businesses is the knowledge base, because there's a lot of people doing $100,000 that know a lot more, and they're much more technical on land than the $1 million people. The $100,000 people are more technical a lot of times. And that's why it just comes down to actions and how you're approaching your marketing and your business.
Yeah, that's a good point. And we have $1 million a year people who are very, like, they have 4 or 5 modes of marketing. They have Google ads, they have email, text, cold call, everything, direct mail. And then we also have $1 million people that's going to get you the most efficiency with your leads. And you also have a multifaceted marketing approach where one lead channel might just not be as efficient some months, and the other one's going to make up for it. And it's going to fluctuate from month to month. And then we also have people who are doing $1 million a year, Dan, who are doing 100% direct mail, and they are doing a high volume. It's going to be less efficient. It's going to take a lot of mail to do that for sure. If you're doing rocket print, standard mailers, everything like that. But if you double down on it and just keep on raising the amount, a pure volume thing, Dan, if you just keep on raising the volume, like, you're going to get to the number that you're trying to get to, whether it's $1 million or even more than that. So there's definitely a widespread of the type of people that marketing for the people. If they are one mode of marketing and doing $1 million, they are very, very high volume, and they're also very highly skilled in what they're doing.
Exactly. You can double down on what marketing channel you're using. You can get to $1 million on all of them. We're just seeing the common things that we see $1 million people do versus 100,000 is multiple facets of marketing. But we also have $1 million people, like Ron said, doing just texting, 100%, only texting. We have people doing only cold calling. That's their marketing channel. That's all they're doing. Definitely you can do that. So the first thing you should do is not necessarily look for another mode of marketing or another channel. First look internal, because you already know that process and you know that system. So can you double down on volume and get double the leads? Can you quadruple it? But when you start doing that, you got to look at your operations. You got to look at your sales, because sometimes you'll double your marketing, but it doesn't double your profit because your systems are broken. That's when different bottlenecks come up. Ever wondered how land investing can be the fastest path to financial freedom? I break it all down in my new book, One Lot at a Time. I'll show you exactly how to find, buy, and flip land for huge profits without dealing with houses, tenants, or any crazy renovations. It's simple. This is the book that I wish I had when I first started. If you're ready to take control of your financial future, grab a copy now. One Lot at a Time by Daniel Apke. Find it at your local bookstore or on Amazon.com.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So going into, like, let's talk about acquisition some, Dan, because a lot of the people who are making the most money in this business, like, they are creative with the way they make deals happen. They're problem solvers. That's what I say a lot. Is like, and I'm not saying people who are doing $100,000 a year are not problem solvers, but the people who are really attacking every lead, who are trying to find solutions for sellers, who are willing to do double closes, who are willing to do subdivides, who are willing to survey hack and, like, seller finding, all different things. Like, those are people that are very successful. They are making the most. I think that is the biggest thing, Dan, is the people who are making the most in this business are making the most of each lead coming through.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a couple ways to do that. One is just your sales ability. But two, I have written down here on, like, the types of acquisitions you're doing. There's a lot of people doing a lot of volume just from double closing now. That would be my first advice for someone to go from 100 to 200,000 just like that, because with your current leads, you're missing out on opportunities where you could have done double closes. And you decide that by the deals you're saying no to flip, essentially, or they're saying no to it because your price is too low. So it comes down to risk, right? You offer double close when the risk is a little high for traditional buy and flips, right? Whether that's price, so you're a little too high. It's a $100,000 property, they want $65,000, right? Still lots of margin in there. Maybe you can't get funding for it though, because there's not enough room for traditional deal funding and investors and things like that. But if you can double close, you have no money out, and you're closing on the same day, you're selling it on the same day you're buying it, so the money's out just for a day. That's where I think the number one opportunity is with people, just to double their profit right away from the leads they already have.
Double close offering.
Yeah, offering double closes and really pushing it.
Yeah. And people, some people struggle with those conversations when they're talking to sellers in terms of double close conversations. And I think the biggest thing is like giving options to sellers is key, solving the problems with it. Do you think people in this business are doing better if they just have like a natural sales ability or a sales background, Dan? Is that something, for me, like I think there's a huge value, and I'm not saying someone who doesn't have a sales background can't be successful in this, but there is a value in being able to talk to people on the phone, being able to negotiate when you come in.
Yeah, because that's a skill that's directly going to correlate. You're going to apply that to this business right away, and you already have that skill built, and it's transferring to this business, right?
Mm-hmm.
So absolutely, because that's a huge part of this business. Sales in any business, like that's why salespeople are paid the highest, but they're also, they're probably, the companies are the most strict on those employees as well because they affect the top line the most. But in general, yeah, sales is good sales ability, being good on the phones, building relationships, coming up with solutions for them, being able to close a deal that might have not closed unless you had those sales ability. That's a huge trait, and you don't need it. Right? That's a skill. You don't need it right away, but you're going to need to work on it and build it up over time. There's a lot of people doing high volume that were not natural salespeople, but they worked on it, and now they're comfortable on the phones, and it helps when you really believe in what you're selling too. It's like what she said last night for her acquisitions manager with their high ticket double closes now. So she's not doing anything she buys for less than, or she sells for less than 50,000. But when she's double closing them, a lot of times she's doing improvements to them before she sells. So dirt roads, clearing out areas, things like that. So when you're pitching a double close, hey, I can't buy this for 65,000 in 2 weeks. Like I said in the offer, I offered 45. I can buy that still at 45,000 if you want that, and I can get you your money in 2 weeks. That's what I offered you. But you're asking for 65. I can't do that with a 2 week close. I need more time. What we can do here, to get this ready, what we do is we do little improvements on the property. So I'm going to list this property on the market. I'm going to build a road out. I know you weren't willing to do the work for that to sell it. I'm going to do all the work for you. You don't need to pay anything. I'm going to build a road. I'm clear out a nice area, put some work into it, make it look really pretty and nice, and try to line it up with a buyer. And that's adding more value, and that's also adding some value to the conversation, but also the end buyer as well, because now they know, the seller knows you're putting in that work. That's why I really like that. The seller understands you're putting in that work. You're not just selling it as is, something they can do very easily. You're putting in some additional work, so it's some leverage on the phones as well.
That makes a lot of sense. And yeah, what she's doing is really cool with that. And she's obviously hitting that $1 million in her first year, it looks like. So yeah, really good example there. What about deal types, Dan? Like what are you seeing? Obviously, people who are making more money are typically going after, or at least willing to target, bigger deals. But again, this is something where we have people who are doing $1 million a year and they're doing 50 deals, averaging $25,000 per deal. There's also people who are doing 10, 12 deals a year, or maybe even less than that. Like I talked to Michael DeFrancis a few weeks ago on the podcast. If you guys haven't watched that, watch it. And he said, like, he just wants his volume to be down, like 2-3 deals a month is awesome. And he said he'll hit $5 million gross profit. So there's a wide spread of people, and deal volume doesn't necessarily always equate with more money. But what are you seeing in general, Dan, as far as deal type?
A lot of people do a variety, so they'll still do. He's very advanced. So he's on the far spectrum.
Yeah, he's top 1%.
Yeah, he's top 1%. So he's on the furthest side, really, on the advanced side that we see in this business. And there's 1% of the people are like that, but the top 10% who are doing $1 million usually have a variety of deals, but you got to sprinkle in big deals because it makes you hit those numbers a lot easier. Like you have to be working on some improvements, subdivides, high ticket double closing, buying a deal for 300, double closing it for 425. That's 10% of your profit a year just from one deal, from high ticket double closing. You just need a deal a month to get to that $1 million. And just upping your numbers in general. Like Kay said yesterday on the YouTube live, she's not going after anything that doesn't have market value of $50,000 or greater. So that's her minimum's $50,000. So if you're doubling your money, $25,000 acquisition. And it's only up from there, right? So then you're going to get a lot of six-figure contracts as well. So you have to up your, it's not always upping volume. You have to up your average profit per deal, which is one of the most important metrics, I think, in this business is profit per deal.
Yeah. And I think just like willingness to do those project-based things. Like sometimes you're not targeting a subdivide and you get deals. I forget who I talked to a few weeks ago, but his first deal was a subdivide. He bought for 35 and sold for 115 or something like that. Like that's his first deal. And the deal made sense, buying and flipping. Buy for 35, sell for 72 or something like that, he said. But he made another 40,000. I talked to him and then he decided after we talked or after we got his deal reviewed that he wanted to subdivide, and he made another $40,000 from it. So the willingness, even when you're first starting out, to do a simple subdivide, it is not a hard process, guys. It gets more complex as the subdivide gets more complex. But if you have a deal that you got and it just makes perfect sense and you're going to make 20-30% more money, like you got to be willing to do that stuff. It makes no sense. We've probably flipped so many deals, Dan, in the last 5-6 years that we could have subdivided and made an extra 20-30%, maybe even more than that. Like yeah. I have so many deals that just pop up in my head like, wow, we could have, before we started targeting subdivides, attacking subdivides, doing subdivides. Like, there's so many deals that we bought for 100, sold for 200. We could have bought for 100, subdivided, and sold for 350. And just being willing to look at deals like that is important.
Yeah, and that was before the whole subdivide push, I think. Now there's a massive subdivide push, and part of that's because the land portal and targeting road frontage on the land portal and being able to target those deals. But everyone has their own little niche and style. We don't talk to anyone who's really the same, who just does, the same exact as the other person. Everyone kind of finds their sweet spot. Maybe someone's targeting subdivides. Like Kay does $50,000 in up deals only, and she's very targeted in her market selection. That's because she's sending mail from her house, and it's expensive and it's time consuming. So she has to really hone in her market selection and her acquisition strategies. Some people would like to spray, like Pete Reese, for example. He rips out mail like crazy and just volume. His ROI on mail is still very high. And he just picks the best deals that come to him, and he has a really, really solid business from doing that. And I think it's a combination. Like everyone kind of finds their sweet spot. There's the shotgun approach. Just send it all out there, and you can scale well with the shotgun approach. And then you can get more targeted and go for certain deals too that are bigger, higher profits, subdivides, improvements. I think everyone kind of finds their spot of where they fit in and what they're looking for. But we rarely talk to someone who's the same exact business, Ron, and strategies. Everyone kind of has their own strategies as you get to $1 million for whatever works for them and their team.
That's what's so cool about it. There's not like copycat. And the people at $1 million, to go back to mindset, like they don't really worry about competition. Like every person that I've interviewed on podcasts who's doing $50, $80, $120,000 per month or more than that, like they just head down and they are learning, they're listening. But as far as like competition is something people worry about when they're trying to get their first deal. And then once you like get rolling and everything, you start making money. Like you don't really think about that stuff because you have separators. Like that's the biggest thing is you have separators, and this business can be done in so many different ways to target, market. Like this is a full cycle business, from choosing an area to how you market, to how you pull your list, to what kind of deals you're trying to target. There's so many things that go into it to make your business unique. Anything else we're missing, Dan? We didn't really talk about systems. I think systems are going to naturally scale. Systems are going to naturally get more efficient. I think efficiency of systems. We didn't talk about systems, Dan, and we didn't talk about hiring. Let's touch on those a little bit, though.
Systems you're gonna scale with them. That's actually a common denominator I see in the 100,000 a month people. Is they're overthinking their systems.
$100,000 a year.
Yeah, that's a month. $100,000 a year. They're overthinking their systems and execution is minimal on the actual things that drive the business. What drives this business is your marketing, your sales ability, just closing more deals, getting more deals under contract, getting after big deals. That's stuff that moves the business. That's stuff that moves the needle, Ron. And I think a lot of the people stuck at 100,000 are looking at the wrong things on what moves the business. They're looking at their CRM before they're even acquiring more deals. Like you got to acquire more deals and then worry about your CRM. You can do $1 million a month or a year with one employee and Google Sheets. Not concerned about that at all. Really not concerned. If you want to make it more streamlined and efficient, for sure, but don't overthink systems. That's a common denominator I see in $100,000 a year people. What was the second thing?
Hiring.
Also, 100,000, same. You don't need many more people. Like maybe get one person, two people at most. And you can have that with $100,000 a year business, and you'll have the same infrastructure. That's why I love this topic, is because you don't need to spend that much more money and spend that many more resources on this scaling, Ron. You really don't. Like you can have one employee at 100,000 and $1 million. And I don't think there's a crazy difference. Now, if you're at $1 million, you will probably need a full-time person. 100,000 times kind of limited. But $1 million, I mean, you might start pushing 1-2 employees. You just have an all-around versatile, call them whatever you want, employee at $1 million, or you could have an acquisitions manager and, you know, an all-around versatile employee who may be transaction coordinator. They list it, they sell it, they get the pictures, they do the due diligence, they do everything essentially besides the sales.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think to wrap this up, guys, and 100% agree, like this business, the reason why you can do $100 million a year with one employee or even by yourself is because the margins. Like if you're trying to do $2,000 margin deals, like, yeah, you might need a full damn team. But with you having $50,000, $60,000 average margins, like you don't need a huge team at all. The biggest difference, guys, is just like the 100,000 versus $1 million a year business. Like there aren't, and when Dan and I were talking about this episode, I was saying like, should we just do 10 million? Because there's a bigger difference obviously between if we get into like $10 million business versus 100,000, a lot more differences than 100,000 versus $1 million business. But that being said, like $1 million business, you need a marketing plan. You need, to understand the business, you need a acquisition plan, everything like that, but you don't need anything crazy. Like it's a volume game, honestly, Dan. I think that's the biggest thing is the volume of marketing in the two. Like if people who are doing $100,000 a month, like they have enough lead flow where they can get enough deals for that. There are outliers, obviously, but overall, there isn't a crazy difference. A lot of $100,000 people just need to scale their volume.
I agree. So we talked about the mindset. We talked about the types of deals you're getting, double closing, flipping, different niches like subdividing, things like that. We talked about your systems a little bit and hiring. I think we covered it all, Ron.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it, guys. If you guys are watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button below. If you guys haven't already, get Dan's book, One Lot at a Time. We'll put a link in the description below. Great insight if you guys are just getting into this business or you're experienced and you've done 100 deals. It's a very valuable asset to have there. Great read. Other than that, guys, thank you so much for listening, for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining, guys.